Hey groupers, Pastor Marshall here. Great to be back from Israel, to be back in the saddle, and to continue to walk through the Gospel of Mark. Jesus' feeding of the 5,000, the only miracle outside of the resurrection that is in all four Gospels. When you think about the times that you are most irritable, when do you think that you are most irritable? I shared some of my times. And then I asked you if you would ask someone that you trusted that question. Did any of you do that since we had the message on Sunday? Everybody but Jack's class, of course. Did you ask someone? And if so, what did they say? What did they say that you were the most irritable? Did it agree with your list? What do you think were Jesus' purposes in having the disciples report about their mission? Well, what benefit is there in sharing failures with the group? And what benefit is there in sharing successes? When Jesus invited the disciples to come away to a remote place, what does that say about the balance of work and rest? And do you have a tendency to work too much, or do you have a tendency to rest too much? What stories in the Old Testament are echoes of the feeding of the 5,000? What Old Testament stories do you know about miraculous food stories? And what are similar with those stories to this story, and what's different? Why do you think that this is the only miracle that all four gospel writers added to their story besides Jesus' resurrection? What is it about this story that rises it so high up to the top, and that it would be in all four Gospels? What do you think? Well, it says that Jesus had compassion on them. Splachna. It means that he had an inward emotion that moved him to action. I wonder about your story. When is a time that you had splachna? When was a time that you had an inner emotion that moved you to action? Tell some stories about that. How can the local church meet physical needs of people without turning ministry into just a social gospel? Is it possible to advance the gospel without caring for physical needs? Think about those two things. How can the church meet physical needs without it becoming just about physical needs? And is it possible to meet spiritual needs, to share the gospel without meeting physical needs at all? Do you think that this miracle was more for the benefit of the 15,000, 20,000 people that were fed? Or do you think that it was more for the benefit of the 12 disciples? Why do you answer the way that you do? Have you ever been in a ministry situation where the resources or the manpower were inadequate to complete the ministry task? What happened when you were in that situation? Well, every week just reminds you of application, and this week I challenged you to unload a burden that you're carrying alone, to unload it to someone else. Have you done that yet? I hope that you have. Well, I hope that you have a great Bible study. Look forward to seeing you next week for the next story in Mark. God bless.